Robbery is the crime of taking or attempting to take something of value by force or threat of force or by putting the victim in fear. At common law, robbery is defined as taking the property of another, with the intent to permanently deprive the person of that property, by means of force or fear. Precise definitions of the offence may vary between jurisdictions. Robbery is differentiated from other forms of theft by its inherently violent nature. Whereas many lesser forms of theft are punished as misdemeanors, robbery is always a felony for this reason. Under English law, most forms of theft are triable either way, whereas robbery is triable only on indictment. The word rob came via French from late Latin words of Germanic origin, from Common Germanic raub theft. Among the types of robbery are armed robbery involving use of a weapon and aggravated robbery involving use of a deadly weapon or something that appears to be a deadly weapon. Highway robbery or mugging takes place outside or in a public place such as a sidewalk, street, or parking lot. Carjacking is the act of stealing a car from a victim by force. Extortion is the threat to do something illegal, or the offer to not do something illegal, in the event that goods are not given, primarily using words instead of actions. Criminal slang for robbery includes blagging, or stick up, and steaming. Republic of Ireland, robbery is a statutory offence in the Republic of Ireland. It is created by Section 14(1) of the Criminal Justice Act, 2001, which provides: a person is guilty of robbery if he or she steals, and immediately before or at the time of doing so, and in order to do so, uses force on any person or puts or seeks to put any person in fear of being then and there subjected to force. United Kingdom, England and Wales, robbery is a statutory offence in England and Wales. It is created by Section 8(1) of the Theft Act 1968, which reads: a person is guilty of robbery if he steals, and immediately before or at the time of doing so, and in order to do so, he uses force on any person or puts or seeks to put any person in fear of being then and there subjected to force. Aggravated theft, robbery is the only offence of aggravated theft. Aggravated robbery, there are no offences of aggravated robbery. Steals, this requires evidence to prove a theft as set out in Section 1(1) of the Theft Act 1968. In R. v. Robinson, the defendant threatened the victim with a knife in order to recover money which he was actually owed. His conviction for robbery was quashed on the basis that Robinson had an honest, although unreasonable, belief, a, of the Act, in his legal right to the money. See also R. v. Skivington, 1968, 1 QB 166, 1967, 2 WLR 655. 131 JP 265, 111 SJ 72, 1967, 1 Orlear 483, 51 Sierra 167, CA. In R. v. Hale, the application of force and stealing took place in different locations, and it was not possible to establish the timing. It was held that the appropriation necessary to prove theft was a continuing act, and the jury could correctly convict of robbery. This approach was followed in R. v. Lockley when the force was applied to a shopkeeper after property had been taken. It was argued that the theft should be regarded as complete by this time, and R. v. Gomez, should apply. The court disagreed, preferring to follow R. v. Hale. Actual or threatened force against a person, the threat or use of force must take place immediately before or at the time of the theft. Force used after the theft is complete will not turn the theft into a robbery. The words, or immediately after, that appeared in Section 23(1)(b) of the Larceny Act 1916 were deliberately omitted from Section 8(1). The book Archbold said that the facts in R. v. Harman, which did not amount to robbery in 1620, would not amount to robbery now. It was held in R. v. Dawson and James that force is an ordinary English word and its meaning should be left to the jury. This approach was confirmed in R. v. Clouden and Corcoran v. Anderton, both handbag snatching cases. Stealing may involve a young child who is not aware that taking other person's property is not in order. Threat, the victim must be placed in apprehension or fear that force would be used immediately before or at the time of the taking of the property. A threat is not immediate if the wrongdoer threatens to use force of violence some future time. Robbery occurs if an aggressor forcibly snatched a mobile phone or if he used a knife to make an implied threat of violence to the holder and then took the phone. The person being threatened does not need to be the owner of the property. It is not necessary that the victim was actually frightened, but the defendant must have put or sought to put the victim or some other person in fear of immediate force. The force or threat may be directed against a third party, for example a customer in a jeweler's shop. Theft accompanied by a threat to damage property will not constitute robbery, but it may disclose an offence of blackmail. Dishonestly dealing with property stolen during a robbery will constitute an offence of handling. Mode of trial: robbery is an indictable-only offence. Sentence: robbery is punishable with imprisonment for life or for any shorter term. It is also subject to the mandatory sentencing regime under the Criminal Justice Act 2003. On 25 July 2006 the Sentencing Guidelines Council published definitive guideline on robbery. Following a v. Mitchell-Aulier 74, the sentencing guidelines provided in Attorney General's references EWCA Crim 127 no longer apply to street robbery involving the use of guns, for which more severe deterrent sentences will almost invariably be required. In November 2005, the Sentencing Guidelines Council issued new draft guidelines concerning robbery. History. Common law: robbery was an offence under the common law of England. Matthew Hale provided the following definition. Robbery is the felonious and violent taking of any money or goods from the person of another, putting him in fear, be the value thereof above or under 1 shilling. See the statutes 23 Hen 8 C1 and 5 and 6 EDW 6 C9 as to benefit of clergy. And also 25 Hen 8 C3 and 1 EDW 6 C12. And also 29 Elis C15 and 3 and 4 W and MC9. The common law offence of robbery was abolished for all purposes not relating to offences committed before January 1, 1969 by Section 32, 1a, of the Theft Act 1968. Statute, see Sections 40 to 43 of the Larceny Act 1861. Section 23 of the Larceny Act 1916 read. 23. 1. Every person who, a. being armed with any offensive weapon or instrument, or being together with one other person or more, robs, or assaults with intent to rob, any person. b. robs any person and, at the time of or immediately before or immediately after such robbery, uses any personal violence to any person, shall be guilty of felony and on conviction thereof liable to penal servitude for life, and, in addition, if a male, to be once privately whipped. 2. Every person who robs any person shall be guilty of felony and on conviction thereof liable to penal servitude for any term not exceeding 14 years. 3. Every person who assaults any person with intent to rob shall be guilty of felony and on conviction thereof liable to penal servitude for any term not exceeding 5 years. This section provided maximum penalties for a number of offences of robbery and aggravated robbery. The following cases relate to the use of force: R.V. Lapierre 1 Leach 320, R.V. Moore 1 Leach 335, R.V. Davis 2 East PC 709, R.V. Maisonard and R 419, R.V. Gnozil 1 C and P 304, R.V. Walls and Hughes 2 C and K 214, assault with intent to rob. If a robbery is foiled before it can be completed, an alternative offence under Section 8(2) of the 1968 Act is assault. Any act which intentionally or recklessly causes another to fear the immediate and unlawful use of force, with an intent to rob, will suffice. The following cases are relevant: R.V. Trusty and Howard 1 East PC 418, R.V. Sharwin 1 East PC 421, mode of trial and sentence. Assault with intent to rob is an indictable-only offence. It is punishable with imprisonment for life or for any shorter term. Assault with intent to rob is also subject to the mandatory sentencing regime under the Criminal Justice Act 2003. Northern Ireland, robbery is a statutory offence in Northern Ireland. It is created by Section 8 of the Theft Act 1969. United States, in the United States, robbery is generally treated as an aggravated form of common law larceny. The elements of robbery are a trespassery, taking and carrying away, of the personal property, of another, with the intent to steal, from the person or presence of the victim, by force or threat of force. The first 6 elements are the same as common law larceny. It is the last 2 elements that aggravate the crime to common law robbery. From the person or presence of the victim, robbery requires that the property be taken directly from the person of the victim or from his presence. Note that this is different from larceny, which simply requires that property be taken from the victim or unregistered trademark as possession, actual or constructive. Property is a on the victim's persona if the victim is actually holding the property, or the property is contained within clothing the victim is wearing or is attached to victim's body such as a watch or earrings. Property is in a persona unregistered trademark as presence when it is within the area of his immediate control. The property has to be close enough to the victim's person that the victim could have prevented its taking if she had not been placed in fear or intimidation. By force or threat of force, the use of force or threat of force is the defining element of robbery. For there to be robbery there must be a force or fear in perpetrating the theft. Questions concerning the degree of force necessary for robbery have been the subject of much litigation. Merely snatching the property from the victim's person is not sufficient force unless the victim resists or one of the items is attached or carried in such a way that a significant amount of force must be used to free the item from the victim's person. For robbery the victim must be placed in a fear of immediate harm by threat or intimidation. The threat need not be directed at the victim personally. Threats to third parties are sufficient. The threat must be one of present rather than future personal harm. Fear does not mean fright. It means apprehension, an awareness of the danger of immediate bodily harm. California, the maximum sentence for robbery in California is 9 years, according to Penal Code Section 213, A, 1A. The threat or use of force does not have to take place immediately before or at the time of the theft. Force used after the theft will turn the theft into a robbery unless the theft is complete. The theft is considered completed when the perpetrator reaches a place of temporary safety with the property. Canada, the country's criminal code makes robbery an indictable offence, subject to a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Robbery statistics, robberies, by country. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime notes that when using the figures, any cross-national comparisons should be conducted with caution because of the differences that exist between the legal definitions of offences in countries, or the different methods of offence counting and recording. Also, not every single crime is reported, meaning 2 things. Robbery rates are going to appear lower than they actually are, and the percentage of crime that is not reported is going to be higher in some countries than others. For example, in one country 86% of the robberies were reported, whereas in another country only 67% of the robberies were reported. The last thing to note is that crime will vary by certain neighborhoods or areas in each country, so, just because a nationwide rate is a specified rate, does not mean that everywhere in that country retains the same amount of danger or safety. Homicides during a robbery, by country. In popular culture, robberies have been depicted, sometimes graphically, in various forms of media, and several robbers have become pop icons, such as Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger. Examples of media works focused on robberies include, in film, The Killing, by Stanley Kubrick, depicts a graphic robbery. Wake Up and Die is an Italian crime drama film directed by Carlo Lizzani, based on the real life of Luciano Luttering, who kept his weapon in a violin case. Take the Money and Run, by Woody Allen, depicts an unconventional view of a robbery. Le Guyton, directed by Jose copyright Giovanni, is loosely based on Luciano Luttering's autobiography. Luttering is played by Alain Delon. Reservoir Dogs, by Quentin Tarantino, showed the aftermath of a robbery, with an abundance of lurid details. In literature, Luciano Luttering, known as the submachine gun soloist, because he kept the weapon in a violin case, used that moniker as the title of his memoir Il Solista del Mitra. He was an Italian criminal, author, and painter who, when committing robberies, worked alone. Lionel White's Bloodhound Mysteries novel, Number 116, Clean Break was the basis for Stanley Kubrick's film The Killing. In television, The Sopranos series depicted numerous incidents and types of robbery throughout its series run. Examples include armed robberies, for example, the season 3 finale, in which Jackie Aprile, Jr. and Dino Zeroli hold up Eugene Pontecorvo's card game at gunpoint, season 6, episode 3, when Paulie Gualtieri and Vito Spatafore, Sr. rob a Colombian drug dealer. Carjackings, for example, the pilot episode, in which Christopher Moltisanti and Brendan Filone hijack Junior Soprano's truck, season 1, episode 2, in which Brendan hijacks another truck with a different accomplice. The season 2 episode, season 2, episode 4, in which a family is carjacked. Extortion, for example, season 6, episode 8, in which Patsy Parasai and Bert Gavassi unsuccessfully attempt to extort protection money from a Starbucks restaurant. Muggings, for example, season 6, episode 7, in which Christopher punches Lauren Bacall and steals her gift basket. See also. References: Matthew Hale. Historia Placitorum Coroni 1736. 1800 edition. Volume 1. Chapter XLVI. Pages 532 to 538. External links: Robbery, Indian Penal Code, S. 390, further reading, Allen, Michael Textbook on Criminal Law. Oxford, Oxford University Press. ISBN 0-19-927918-7. Criminal Law Revision Committee. 8th Report. Theft and Related Offences. CMND 2977, Go, Edward. Theft Acts 1968 and 1978. London, Sweet and Maxwell. ISBN 0-421-19960-1, Ormerod, David Smith and Hogan Criminal Law, London, LexisNexis. ISBN 0-406-97730-5, Smith, J.C. Law of Theft. London, LexisNexis. ISBN 0-406-89545-7.